is the Pegasus Podcast, presented by Night Sports Now. UCF news, views, and a few hot takes. Now, here are your hosts, Bailey Go Knights Adams and Christian Charge On Simmons.
Welcome into episode 255. Be sure following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. You can also email us at PegasusPodcast@ksn@gmail.com. Christian, how's it going?
It's going great. We have a football schedule for
the
2025 season, just days after we hoped to have it, so that's exciting. Did you catch any of the Big 12's TV reveal of the schedule?
I sure didn't.
Yeah, I have a question about that, actually. Let's just start with that, because what better way to bring in the new UCF schedule than to immediately trash talk the Big 12? But they announced that they were going to, like, it was a big deal. They're like, we're going to have a televised schedule release. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't seem that groundbreaking, but go Big 12, you're doing your thing. It was at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And it also was what? It was on ESPNU.
ESPNU and FS2.
So my issue with that is, what does that say about what Fox and ESPN think of the Big 12 schedule? That at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, they couldn't even get FS1 or like ESPN2. I'm so confused by that.
The only thing I could think of is I would imagine there's probably like daily programming on FS1. I don't know about ESPN2. I honestly don't even really know about FS1.
Has 14 channels, and they put them on the only one no one gets.
Yeah, but I don't know. That, like, why do it at 11 a.m. if you're going to want to have a show, first of all?
I know.
And I don't know. What also I found weird was, like, I thought about tuning in, but then I was like, I've kind of forgot a little bit. And, like, 1 minute after 11, UCF dropped their schedule on Twitter. And then I was scrolling to see, like, actually they dropped the video. And then I was, like, scrolling up to see UCF drop, like, the actual, like, graphic of the schedule. And in between doing that, the Big 12 also tweeted out every team's schedule at the exact same time. So I was like, what's the point of the show? Like, I'm assuming they're, like, breaking it down, but
wouldn't that be cool if that was how the college football playoff did their shows? Just 7 p.m. on the dot. Here it is.
It would be nice, yeah. But it was
I have to keep trash talking the Big 12, this conference that elevated UCF to the highest level in the sport it's ever been in, and I'm forever grateful to. I mean this nicely, and I don't want anyone to think I don't like the Big 12, because I do. I like it very much. This is the one Power 4 conference where a schedule release is not interesting, because at this point in the season, well, not, the off season, excuse me, we don't know what anyone's going to be, and all a schedule release really is just which brands are playing each other. And this is the one Power 4 conference that does not have any blue blood. So it's just like, okay, like, it's cool if you're one of the teams. If you're literally any other kind of national fan, the Big 12 is the one league where there is really nothing interesting about their schedule release.
They look at it and they're like, ooh, okay.
We don't know it's not like I can go look at the Big 10 schedule. Ohio State, Michigan, I don't care what's happening in the season. That's a big game. And that's a bad example because we know when that one is every year. But, like Ohio State, Penn State, or USC, Michigan, or something, like, that's a big game just because it's a big game. But like the Big 12, we don't know which of these games are big yet. I'm looking at UCF schedule. I have no idea which game is going to be the big game. It's just, it's a strange league to choose.
We think we know, but then we're never right. Like, teams end up being better than we thought. Teams end up being worse than we thought. And yeah, that's what happened last year. Remember the Utah game when that schedule came out? We're like, wow, UCF and Utah, Black Friday.
One of the most powerful entities in college athletics saw that game and was like, we're putting that in prime time. And it was two teams battling for nothing.
Idiots. Really dumb. Really dumb. Yeah, but like, looking at the schedule, I don't know. It looks – we should just talk about the fact that when it came out, you put a tweet out that I'm just learning about this, but I'll just bring it up anyway, that you put out a tweet about how it was a tough schedule and you got pushback. So people think this is easy?
I don't know what the hell's going on, guys. I was surprised that a lot of people don't seem to think this is, that hard of a schedule. My gut reaction, and maybe I should have waited until I should have done the thing we do as a society where we wait to all have group think together on how we feel about a sports thing before we weigh in. My gut reaction was this is a tough schedule, and I'm standing by that. And we knew it was going to be tougher because we knew the games, and we know that, remember, the Big 12, there are 9 conference games. So UCF will flip between having 5 home games and 4 home games in given years. This is a 4 home game year. 5 road games is tough. The instant reaction things that stood out to me is that 5 weeks in a row, North Carolina at Kansas State, Kansas at Cincinnati, West Virginia. That's kind of a rough stretch.
Yep.
I think there is a very, very real chance that they're going into that game at Cincinnati 2-3, possibly.
Yeah.
I really don't want game at Cincinnati to be do or die to keep the season on track, but whatever. The first bye week being September 13th. I know that probably just couldn't really be helped given how UCF's non-conference slate shaped up, but that's as useless of a bye week as you're going to come across on a schedule. And wow, oh wow, having to play at Texas Tech and at BYU in November is the two teams that very well may be, based on what we know now, the Big 12 title game matchup. Like that is not an unreasonable guess if you were to try
on the
to
road too.
Yeah.
That was what kind of stood out to me, was that there's that stretch to end the season where you're at Texas Tech, you come back home and you host Oklahoma State, then you're at BYU on Thanksgiving weekend. And I looked at that and I was like, wow, that really sucks. But I think the actual toughest stretch of the season is what the one you just mentioned, with North Carolina, at K-State, Kansas, at Cincinnati, West Virginia. So that's like a 5-game stretch that I said is the toughest stretch of the season. And then also I'm not happy with the way the last 3 games of the season unfold. That's like most of the conference schedule. So, yeah, I looked at this and thought this might be UCF's toughest schedule ever. And people are like, yeah, I see this is a pretty manageable schedule. I could see them going 7-5 or 8-4. I'm like, are we just defaulting to that every year now?
I do think there's a little bit of, and I put up a poll of what fans think the team's going to go. And I was pleasantly surprised with some of the results and horrified by other parts of it. But I do think that there is this, this is year 3. There's definitely, like, for me, for sure, the allure has, gone away a little bit of just it being so many big brand teams. Like, it used to be like, you pick any game on the schedule. Jacksonville State, North Carolina, A&T, drop those 2. The other 10 games, any one of them would be the biggest game UCF's playing in a given year in the AAC, like without a doubt. And it's funny, like little things like November 1st at Baylor didn't stand out to me. That's a game we would have probably done 3 off-season pods on if they were in the AAC in their game. But it's, they'll go to Baylor. A Baylor who went 8-4 this year, 9-4.
Yeah, they finished strong. I don't remember, but I know they lost the bowl game to LSU. That's all I really remember.
But I believe they won their final 6 Big 12 games. So it's just, that's like a game. That's what I'm talking about when I say it's difficult. That's a game that like didn't even pop up on my radar to discuss, and it's a team that like is hot at the end of last season. Maybe has put things together under Aranda. And yeah, it's way too early to know who's who, and we'll just have to wait and see. And that's just the reality of this league. But there's nothing about these games and the order they're coming in that has me going, yeah. Can you hear music, by the way, through my mic, just out of curiosity?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we didn't need to take that long to decide. But
I couldn't hear anything, so I was trying to see if I heard anything.
I'm in my apartment. I live on the 3rd floor of my apartment, and a car is outside that apparently has speakers so loud that like my window is shaking. So that's really cool.
The subs in.
Yeah, that's good for them. I love when people think I want to hear their music. But yeah, tough schedule.
Yeah, it is tough, and obviously, like you say, it's like too early to know what anyone's going to be. It almost feels like that matters less this year, because I feel like we kind of know what UCF's going to be. Yeah, and I don't think they're going to be very good. So yeah, basically not knowing what everybody's going to be, we kind of are just going to hope that some of these teams are pretty bad and that UCF gets lucky with some of the schedule ends up falling. Because when you look at it right now, K-State's usually solid. That being your first, your conference opener on the road after playing North Carolina, which I imagine is going to be a pretty tough home game. You open there. I don't know what Kansas is anymore. Like they're better than they used to be. They kind of seem like they were on the upswing, but they've kind of tapered off a little bit lately.
They finished pretty strong last year.
Did they? Yeah, they were one of the hotter ones toward the end of the year. But at Cincinnati, I thought Cincinnati this past year was going to be a gimme, and it wasn't. Even the one 2 years ago when they went to Cincinnati, they were an Emory Jones. Emory Jones? Is he the quarterback back then?
At 2023, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I couldn't remember. We were an Emory Jones pass attempt on a 2-point conversion away from potentially going to overtime in that game. West Virginia, they've got a new coach, but they've dominated UCF the first 2 times we played them as Big 12.
West Virginia, let's drop this now so I can be depressed in a year or whenever this is. West Virginia, I think, could be a win for UCF. It's a home game, which is nice, and they're in the same situation as UCF, where they just brought in a new old coach. The difference was UCF did a better job at retention than they did. They lost all their big players, and yeah, UCF lost a lot too. But West Virginia seems like a team that's going to be similar to UCF, and you hope to just maybe home field advantage carries there. That's homecoming, right? It's homecoming. Yeah, big game. But also, as you pointed out, UCF's played West Virginia twice, and neither game has been fun. I believe another one of those games was also homecoming, and did not go very well for UCF.
Cool with the Shaq pregame DJ set.
I was going to say with the duck shimmering in the chrome gold stack UCF decal on the helmet, but yeah, we can go. I forgot when Shaq goes, West Virginia's going to die today, and then if it turns out if he had just said John Rice Plumlee is going to turn the ball over 4 times today, then it would have been.
He would have been much more correct. Yeah.
Can I just say really quickly? You said just to pump up Kansas because why not? Kansas was 2-6 at one point last year. Then they beat number 17 Iowa State, number 6 BYU, and number 16 Colorado in 3 straight weeks. That's the thing about the Big 12 is there's quite literally not a game on the schedule where you can ever just go, yeah, I'd like pencil that in now in the offseason. We thought it was going to be Kansas when UCF joined the league, and then Kansas was like, hey, what if we hire a really good, competent coach and become dangerous? So there's just nowhere to hide. I was going to say something else about the schedule. Oh, yes, I have another thing to say. We're talking about teams. We don't know who's going to be who will be good, who will not, where the big matchup is. I can tell you a thing to scare you. A bunch of Big 12 teams. There's 16 of them. They all just got their schedules. The ones playing UCF this year, every single one of them's looking at their schedule and UCF's a win. Every single one of them. Just check. Oh, we got UCF that week. Win. That's the part that scares me.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know where. I don't know how to view that. Like, yeah, it sucks that they've fallen to that point, and I don't know how all you can do to get out of that is beat these teams that think you're an automatic win. But this year, that's going to be a tough thing to do. Like, I don't know, and I think it's going to be something that I'll know more as the summer goes on. But I'm curious to see how revved up for the season I get, knowing what. We're probably going to go through a pretty tough one. I'll get excited because it's college football season. I'll get excited to go back to the bounce house and everything that comes with that. But as far as this team, I'm thinking in my head, like, what's the path to me getting excited to watch this team play next year, other than like the novelty of like Scott Frost is back. Let's see what that looks like. Because like it could from the start go really wrong and he'd be like, oh, we're in for 10 more weeks of me watching an offense that doesn't really know what it's doing and doesn't really have a direction. I don't know. I'm a little scared. I'm more scared now that the schedule's out and I know the order of these teams for some reason than I maybe was a couple weeks ago.
I'm going to refute everything you just said and invalidate it. First off, this is why I've always loved our podcast. It's like, please listen to the Pegasus Podcast where we tell you how we're not even sure if we'll be excited for the upcoming football season. I disagree with you. And in fact, I disagree with you to the point that I am anticipating having the most fun UCF football season I've had since 2018. And I'm not joking.
Because there are no expectations?
For the first time since I was a young child of the age of like 19, there are no expectations on this season. And 2016, which was the last season like that, was frustrating at times. It was not perfect. The Houston game, them blowing that was a sore spot for sure. But for the most part, it was just a lot of feel good. Hey, we thought we'd be really bad. We just came off 0-12 and now we're going to a bowl. I think as long as they are respectable, I think as long as they aren't 3-9 or something, and I think as long as they win some games or competitive and find some stars that the fans can rally around as guys for 2026, I think we genuinely might be in for the most enjoyable season from a fan base perspective in years. Because there's just not going to be the same level of frustration and blown potential as there has been basically every season since 2018.
I hope that's true. I hope they can find some stars along the way, but I also, looking at how this schedule plays out, I could see them going 3-9. Like you say, like as long as they don't go 3-9, like I could see it happening. I don't know though, because like there's enough parity in this conference that you'll run into a win somehow, because no one thought UCF was going to beat Oklahoma State 2 years ago. But I don't know. I'm not sure, and a lot of it will come down to reminding myself of the 35 players they brought in from the portal. I don't even think that was an exaggeration, but I don't even think it was that far off.
I think it was close to 30. Yeah.
Yeah. Reminding me of like who is on the roster and what it'll look like. I think I'll get myself back to being hopeful. But when I look at the way the schedule plays out, I can't, like you said, I can't look at the schedule outside of Jacksonville State and North Carolina A&T and be like, yeah, they're winning that game. They're winning that game. Like I can maybe I'm trying to think. Like the most likely, you said West Virginia as a likely one. Like West Virginia and Houston are the two. Cincinnati maybe are the three that I'm like, yeah, maybe. But that's like if they win all three of those, that's still only 5 wins.
Oklahoma State was in free fall last year.
Yeah, but they're just always, I don't know. I don't feel like they're going to be bad again. but
I don't
we don't know.
really either. But I will just say 3-9 because I don't agree with that. You're saying that they're going to win one Big 12 game. They'll lose. I don't buy that.
They could.
Well, they could do a lot. I still don't buy it. I mean,
they went 2 last year.
Yeah, but because
the veteran team,
coach, so it was different. Scott Frost won a national championship here. It is funny to look at it from the perspective of. I don't think it's any kind of out there statement to say that last year's roster will almost certainly be better than this year's roster.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think we all understand that UCF should have won a lot more than they did last year. And you sort of put yourself in a hole when you play 4 different quarterbacks when no injuries are involved. But I don't know. I honestly, I'm going to tell you, it's not coping. I don't believe they're going to go 3-9 next year. To me, that signals
I don't know. They're going
miss
to
on everything, and it's a disaster. And like, I'm not saying it's like completely impossible, but I would be really surprised if we're sitting here a year from now talking about they won one game outside the first 2.
Yeah, I didn't say they were going to go 3-9, but I said the way the schedule plays out, I wouldn't be surprised if they went 3-9.
I'd be surprised. I guess is what I'm saying. I would be surprised if they went 3-9.
I hope they don't, but
yeah, you heard it here first. Bailey hates UCF, rooting for a 3-9 season. Wants Scott Frost to fail, wants our next coach back to be Josh Heupel.
Every time I see a picture of Scott Frost, it just makes me happy.
It's weirding me out because, and I think I texted you about this, it weirds me out when I see photos of him wearing UCF merch that they came up with after he left. Like, there was a photo this week of him wearing...
He loves the Orlando stuff.
The Orlando stuff, the Orlando hat with the night head is the A. It's the A, right?
Yeah.
And it weirds me out. So, because it just, something in my brain doesn't click right. Seeing him in, like, because I associate that Nighthead obviously with the Gus era because that's when it came out. It's just weird to me to see.
Yeah.
So since you believe they're going 3-9, why don't we pull up what my Twitter followers think? Since I put up a little poll earlier, 100% of voters said 12-0.
Bad people.
Yeah, bad people. No. Okay. So I asked. You've seen the schedule. Give me UCF's record in 2025. 163 votes. Not a huge sample size, but let's roll with it anyway. 4-8 or worse. That's you. 13% of people voted for that. 6-6 or 5-7. 58% of people voted for that. This is where it gets a little wonky. 8-4 or 7-5. 22% of people voted for that. 9-3 or better. 7% of people voted for that. So we've got a good
37% of people need to get your heads checked.
Close to a third of the fan base is unfortunately insane. But I'm not going to. 7-5 isn't insane to me. I think you're just, like I don't know.
That's very optimistic.
I just think that they would need a lot of things to break their way. I think I'm at 5-7.
My hope. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't even say hope. My realistic hope is 5-7 or 6-6. Like getting it in that little window would be nice.
Yeah,
I'm leaning toward being more like 3-9, 4-8. Like I could see that happening.
You already know I'm making the title of this video. Bailey predicts UCF to go 3-9.
That's fine. I don't really care.
We're gonna roll with that literally through the entire offseason.
I don't care what people think. Well, I do care what people think of me. Actually, that's completely against my entire, fiber of my being. But
this is when you drop the "This is my personal vanity project." I don't care what you think.
I like to pretend that I don't care what people think of me.
All right, well, let's do it.
Do what?
I'm going to read the schedule to you, and you give me your gut reaction. Don't look at it. Don't look at it. Look at me.
What do you?
I'm going to read it, and you just give me gut reaction when I say a game, and you tell me if it's a win.
I like to follow along.
No, because then you're looking ahead and you're already thinking.
No, I'm not. I'm literally looking at them one by one just so that I remember, like, you'll say, like, Cincinnati, and I'll forget who they played the previous week. So,
okay. All right.
I'm not that familiar with the schedule yet.
Let's do it.
Okay.
This will be a little different than when we would do this in like 2021. It'd be like, 10-2. They're going to the near 6. All right. Jacksonville State.
Win.
Really? Okay. North Carolina A&T.
Win.
All right.
Bye week. Win.
I don't know why I said bye week out loud. All right. You've got them at 2-0 heading into a primetime matchup on ESPN with North Carolina. Just kidding. This is probably going to be on
I was like, wait.
North Carolina.
Loss.
At Kansas State.
Loss.
Kansas.
Loss.
At Cincinnati.
Win, because I just want to say win.
All right, 3-3. Well on their way to bowl eligibility. West Virginia.
Loss.
Okay. At Baylor.
Loss.
Season's getting away from them a little bit. Houston.
Win.
Okay, 4-5. Heading into the final stretch of the season, which is very easy. Bowl game in striking distance. At Texas Tech.
Loss.
Oklahoma State.
I could see them winning. I'm going to say loss.
At
I think loss.
All right.
I feel like they're going to hit a wall in November.
November's going to suck, man. Like, I can tell you right now, November.
Could you not see them? Could you not see them being 4-5 within striking distance? Then you're like, okay, this stretch really sucks, and then them just losing all three.
Do you know why I can't see them being 4-5?
Why?
Because we are still waiting for UCF's first win in the month of October as a Big 12 team. Hasn't happened. 0-7 in the month of October.
Do you want to talk about the thing that you asked me before we got on the podcast, if it ever happened before, and it happened last year, was where you asked me, have they ever played 5 straight weeks against Power 5 programs? And then you looked at it and you're like, yeah, last year, and they went 0-5.
They went 0-5.
Then I realized that they finished 1-8 over the last 9 games. That was reminded of that fact. Yeah.
It's very weird to be talking about how all these games they're going to lose, and I still just have an overwhelming sense of optimism for the program. And I think that's really, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid hard, because it's particularly stupid since there are podcasts of me from like 2 months ago saying that hiring Scott Frost would be stupid, and now I'm looking at this very difficult schedule talking about how they're probably going to go 4-8 or 5-7. I'm just like, I feel good, but I do feel good.
Sure.
What can happen on this schedule where we're talking next offseason, a lot of podcasts about maybe Frost was a mistake? I feel like the bar is pretty low for that to end at the end.
I think losing their last 10.
Just straight up winning the first 2 and then not winning another game.
Their only wins being against Jack State and North Carolina A&T, and then them losing every other game. That's probably where I'd be like, that would admittedly be pretty bad. I just because even to be that bad. I don't either, but they could be. And even in the scenario where I think they're 3-9, like I'm not saying they're 3-9 and they're getting blown out in all these games, but I'm thinking that there are going to be games where it's a one score game, and until I see this version of whatever version of team we're going to get win those close games, I'm not going to like automatically side with UCF. And I think they could go 3-9, 4-8 and still go into next year me thinking like, yeah, Frost is the guy, and like we got to build it back up, because unfortunately things have died and fallen off a cliff a little bit over the last few years. So what? Am I wrong?
No, I made a face if you're not watching on YouTube. Yeah. I know you're not wrong at all. It was just a little, I don't know, dramatic.
That's bad.
It is, but it's fine because Scott Frost is back, so everything's going to be okay. I don't know what's happening to me.
I don't know. Yeah, you're freaking me out. Like I don't like being the one who's like, I don't know how.
I've talked about this. Like, this is the total opposite of our roles usually, but I've talked about this on the podcast repeatedly over the years. I'm free now, I think, because it's been too many years of stress, and this is literally the first time since 2016 that I'm just looking that I've gotten a UCF football schedule. I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, like they'll play the games, they'll win some, they'll lose some, and we'll see what Frost can do in 2026. And I really have had a hard time with. How mean do I want to get to the fan base? I've really had a hard time with having seasons that if I dictated the mood of the fan base, would have found perfectly enjoyable, but then the fans are crazy. And one of those that really stands out to me is 2019. They went 10-3. They finished in the top 25. The losses were by a combined 7 points. They did it all with a true freshman quarterback who had like the type of true freshman season where you understand that he is a superstar in the making, and everyone was just pissed as all hell the entire time. Blowout win in the bowl game, and everyone was just losing their minds angry at a top 25 season, the 5th top 25 season in 40 plus years of UCF football. And I don't know. I like that, and maybe I'll be way off base. I mean, it may be that they lose some games and people are out on Frost, but the fan base just seems, because it's Frost in particular, in a headspace right now where I think as long as they're competitive and they give the fans some good memories and win a game they're not supposed to and show that they're building something, I think that's it. I think that's all it takes to get to the next offseason and think, we're doing something here.
I have a question that has an answer that doesn't matter, but I want to ask it anyway.
That's deep. Go ahead.
Do fans look back at 2019 now and feel differently about it than they did at the time?
If they don't, they need to look at themselves and think differently.
But I would imagine so, right? Because at the time it was UCF went 13-0 in 2017. They went, 12-1 in 2018. Yeah, then they went 10-3. They lost to Cincinnati, and that's when people freaked out. Yeah. And
it was Pitt and Cincinnati losing those was like And I remember
Tulsa too. Like,
now I was going to say now, and it's funny how much things have changed. Is I remember after the Tulsa game, not to put my dad on blast, but it was because a conversation I had with my dad after the Tulsa game is because we were upset naturally. And my dad just said, he was like, I thought we were past losing this type of game as a program. And which, listen, turns out not so much.
Nope.
But it is funny to just think about how different the headspace was of the fan base back then, and myself and everyone. And I do think part of that is that it's just so stupid. And this, we're not telling you guys anything you don't know, but it was like 2017 happened and 2018 happened. That was 2 years, both with Mackenzie Milton at quarterback and with some of the best players in program history. And I and everyone else just sat back and went, great, this is how it is now. Really, we all did. We all did. And I think everyone's guilty of that. I know I've told the story before of when Cincinnati was playing here in 2022. I was talking with a Cincy reporter in the press box, and he was talking about how the fan base was like close to being out on fickle because they'd lost like once or twice at that point in that season, and they were coming off the playoff season. It's just you do well, and it creates, you know, higher expectations and so on and so on. But I don't know, it really got tiresome. And I'm not saying that this is true for every season. I'm not saying that fans have never had a right to be mad. Boy, did they have a right to be mad last year. But it really did feel like UCF fans got to the point as a whole where the team was either in the top 25 and very relevant in the talk of college football, or they were a complete failure. And those were the only two spheres that UCF fans could exist in, is either we are winning all the games or we are angry. And I don't know. I'm hopeful that this year we can find a little more of a middle ground, because I think the fan base in general understands that Frost has inherited a team that's been on the downtrend for years now. Let's call it what it is. And was left with a pretty crazy roster situation to try to rebuild. And I'm confident he can rebuild it, but I think we all understand that this year's more about just establishing the foundation of what this is going to be versus immediate results. And if there are immediate results, it's all gravy. Like them going to a bowl game, it would be huge. Like something that, if they went 6-6 last year, they didn't. But if they went 6-6 last year, that would have been treated still pretty bad. That exact same record this year is treated as a celebration. So that's why I'm feeling less stressed than I usually do when we're looking at the football schedule.
And I'm immediately going to go back in time again, even though you're talking about looking forward to this year. But that's why it felt like 2023 was so weird, because at the beginning of the season and all offseason, you and I were like, yeah, just get to a bowl. That'd be great. They did that, but it was the way they got there. It was the losing 5 games in a row where we were, for a month and a half of the season, it felt like just very unhappy and like, are they ever going to win again? And the fact that it repeated itself last year and then went 4-8 was not helpful at all to the greater cause. But if they go 6-6 in 2023 and they don't have a 5-game losing streak in the middle of the year, somehow just everything gets distributed more evenly, I think that season would have been more widely accepted by everyone, where they're like, wow, this ended up being got some big wins. It was a fun year. Just that 5-game losing streak in the middle of it really took everything out of everybody. And
we actually don't talk enough about how insane it is that they got to a bowl, that they should not have gone to a bowl that season. And it was the Oklahoma State win that came out of nowhere, which now we understand. We were younger. We didn't realize the Space Game's actual magic yet, and we should have known. But yeah, it's funny in my head. And you tell me, but the 2023 5-game losing streak, love that we got to put a year in front of it because there's been 2. That one feels like eternity to me, and I don't really feel that way about the 2024 one, but I might have just been so checked out on the Gus era by the end of the 2024 one that it just wasn't hitting the same.
I think it's because of the 2024 one. I don't know if we'd say like because we were so checked out. It was more just at that point we realized UCF was in a free fall at the quarterback position. They had no idea what they were doing, and they were playing ranked Iowa State, ranked BYU, and whoever else was in that stretch. I don't really remember. But they both sucked. That's the thing, is like, if they can get through this year without a 5-game losing streak, mission accomplished, man. Like,
I don't know if they can.
I don't know. That's the thing, is, are we going to have to put up with a 5-game losing streak for a 3rd straight season?
I kind of want to suggest a podcast topic for next week. Do we have anything for next week yet?
No, we don't have anything for like the next 8 weeks.
Okay, cool. All right, guys, we're taking an 8-week break. We'll be back in April. I kind of want to do another roster breakdown, like just portals quieted down. Let's talk about it, because we're saying this stuff, and then I'm kind of, what's happening?
I think you pitched this like 2 weeks ago, and I was like, we don't have a roster yet. Like, we're gonna have to put the roster together ourselves.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We'll just do it. We can do that. We can do that. That won't be hard. It'll actually be really hard, but we'll do it. Because I'm thinking about this conversation, then I'm also thinking about some of the pieces they've added through the portal and some of the guys they brought back, and I'm like, Are we being a little crazy? Like, is it really like, I don't know. It's not like the team's a disaster. It's just, there's a lot of unknowns. I think it's a lot closer to, wow, we don't know what this team is than wow, this team is bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I guess part of it is like, I'm having a hard time picturing what the roster looks like. And right now, like if I asked you, and you might give me an answer here that makes me feel better. If I asked you, say Dylan Risk is the quarterback, if he throws a 15-yard out, who's catching it?
Dylan Wade.
Is that the tight end that they brought in? Like, I'm gonna have to quiz myself on these people. Like, I don't know who's on this roster. And
I think I'm okay with the roster. I'm not in a perfect place with it, but I've been in worse.
As far as like knowing it.
Let me ask you a question that was posed to me.
Okay.
This week, and I thought the answer was interesting. Who's the face of this team?
Scott Frost.
That's what I said. Player. Who's the face of this team?
Paul Rubel, probably.
Okay, that was the answer we came up with. Was Paul Rubel. And
that's so
since
weird.
That conversation was had. It's UCF releases the Jeopardy video today, which I have not watched yet, but I'm excited to. I got straight from work on this podcast, which he's in. He's front and center at the Pro Bowl stuff, and I'm like, is Paul Rubel the face of UCF athletics right now?
I think he's yeah, I think so. I think he's the most recognizable. I mean, not just because he's absurdly tall. It's just he's been here a long time now, and he's one of the few still on the roster that people know because of everybody that graduated, because of everybody that hit the portal. That's what we're kind of left with. We don't know who the quarterback is.
Well, sure we do. It's Dylan Risk or Taven Jackson or maybe someone else. But I think the other thing about Paul Rubel is he was someone the fan base was generally familiar with even before he started playing this past year. Like it was always like, Paul Rubel. Like it's like I said, I think I was in elementary school when he got here. Like it's been a long time that he's been here. I gotta tell you, I'm refreshing myself with the roster really quickly. It's like defensive end, Malachi Lawrence, Nigel Lee Kelly, Sincere Edwards, D tackle, John Walker, RJ Jackson, Horace Lockett. They brought in Lewis Carter, Phil Picciotti, Kelly Lawson, Chasen Johnson came back, Antoine Jackson came back. They got the guy from Syracuse. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not.
I think the defense is going to be way better than the offense.
Defense might be.
It's just going to be 2016 again.
Yeah, which I was totally. 2016, my favorite game. If you're a younger UCF fan, please go watch the highlights of this game. I think my favorite game, Tulane, in 2016, when the offense could do nothing and the defense scored 3. Was it 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns? I think it was 3.
I don't remember. I'm going to look it up though.
It was like the offense. It was Mackenzie Milton when he was very young, and the offense was just kind of confused and couldn't do much. And literally, the defense had, I think, 3. I remember that for the Sentinel because I was freelancing for them at the time. I went to Willie Fritz's press conference. Funny enough, Willie Fritz will be back in the bounce house this year, and I remember him just being like, whether it was 3 or 4, him just being like, "Yeah, I've never seen a game where a defense scored that many points. So I don't really know what to tell you."
Do you remember what the score was?
I'm gonna say like 24-6 or something.
It was 37-6.
37-6.
All right, I'm finally found it. I'm finally pulling it up.
I believe if I remember right, Mackenzie Milton and UCF's offense also ran the Statue of Liberty play at one point that game because Frost would just do crazy things that year.
So I didn't remember this part, but UCF went down 6-0 in the first quarter. They scored 37 straight points. Mackenzie Milton ran for a touchdown. Drico Johnson returned a fumble 30 yards for a touchdown.
Keep in mind that if I remember right, that return to fumble was Tulane ran a pitch play and he just snatched it out of the air and ran for a touchdown.
Shaquille Griffin, 33-yard pick 6. That made it 20-6. Matthew Wright kicked a field goal. Drico Johnson, 86-yard pick 6. So a second pick 6, the second touchdown for Drico Johnson. And Justin Holman, 1-yard touchdown run.
That sounds about right. All right, Bailey, extra credit.
2 1-yard touchdown runs by 2 different quarterbacks, 2 Drico Johnson touchdowns, and a Shaquille Griffin touchdown, and a field goal.
Drico Johnson scored more than anyone on the offense. Extra credit, Bailey. What was the uniform combo?
It was a blackout.
Yes, I love when you know this.
With the gold outline nighthead, right?
You're the best, man. I'm so happy you just did that. That makes me so happy that you.
Well, remember because it was a rescheduled game. It was supposed to be a night game.
Yeah,
I believe.
I believe that it was rescheduled because of a hurricane. We're in the territory that no one cares about. I believe that was going to be.
I'm thinking about happier times.
20. How bad is it that 2016 was happier times? Like that's how far we've fallen. But I believe that was going to be their first ever surprise helmet. That gold outline nighthead helmet, but then it got reshuffled because of the hurricane and ended up being the white chrome nighthead for the homecoming game.
Yeah.
Which was
I don't want to apologize to the listeners. I feel like you guys caught me on a bad day. I don't know why I'm so negative right now. Like,
you're fine. I'm trying to bring you out of it.
I wasn't feeling this like going into the podcast, but the more I think about it, I'm like, oh, I think my like part of me is like the fact that I have no expectations means everything is going to go wrong. But that's not how it goes.
Well, let's bring it back down. Let's look at the offense really quickly. Quarterback, Taven Jackson, Dylan Risk, Jakari Brown, Cam Fancher for some reason.
I forgot about Fancher and Jakari Brown.
This list might not be. I found this in my notes app, and I don't know how accurate this is, so we'll just keep rolling with it. Running back, Jaden Nixon, Miles Montgomery, Tavion Swint, Stacey Gage. Wide receiver, tight ends, Dylan Wade, Kylan Fox.
Did you skip wide receiver?
Offensive line, guard Memelar, Paul Rubelt, Carter Miller, Preston Cushman, Jakiah Leftwich, Justin Royez.
Okay.
Wide receiver, I have DJ Black, Day Farmer, and Burdell Richardson. I feel like they added someone else who's out of my head right now.
Probably, yeah.
Either way, offense may need a little more,
Here's a question.
Even the offense, I don't read that, and I'm not like, ooh, they're not going to win a game for 2 months.
I didn't think that going into last year either. And they actually had a much better offensive roster on paper. Okay, you asked me who the face of UCF football is right now.
Yeah.
By the end of the 2025 season, which player will be the face of UCF football?
Scott Frost.
Scout team Scott Frost.
I'm a scout team. I wonder if he's still at the age where he can run scout team again.
Probably could.
Probably could, to be honest. I'm gonna say Taven Jackson. Not because he's going to be anything interesting, but just because he's going to be the quarterback most likely.
I was going to say Jaden Nixon.
But he's one and done, isn't he?
Maybe. Probably. I don't know.
We got to do a little roster breakdown next week because I feel like I live in this and I'm still confused.
We can do the roster breakdown. I'm just going to be prepared for people to be like that you got this wrong, you also got that wrong, you got this wrong too. So that'll be fun.
That's always I got to tell you guys, the most fun part for me of having the podcast is always when we do it. And then over the next couple of days, I get the text from people being like, you said this thing and it's not true. And I'm like, God damn it. Okay.
So you think, this is the schedule release podcast. You think Taven Jackson's going to be the quarterback?
I do. Okay. But that also might just be like PTSD from how Gus handled the quarterback room, that I'm just assuming he's a transfer who was brought in. So he's going to get the job. I don't know. I do think we really poked at Gus for it, but the whole he's my guy thing is not a unique to Gus thing. And Frost brought in Taven Jackson. He did not bring in Dylan Risk. I also think that Scott Frost is a guy who has been willing to mess around with quarterback to make it work. We'll see. But would you put money on Dylan Risk over
my answer to the who's going to be the face of the program after this or coming out of this season was going to be Dylan Risk.
Really? So we just one of us is definitely going to be wrong if we take that approach.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who would you prefer? Like, just we know nothing, obviously, but who would you prefer?
I would say Dylan Risk just because I don't know enough about Taven Jackson.
Yeah.
Like, I can't be like, oh, this is going to be my guy. I'm going to put all of my chips on him because I don't know.
I was pretty underwhelmed with that pickup, and I understand it was a weird portal cycle. And the quarterback, this was not a great cycle for quarterbacks through the portal to begin with. Mm-hmm. And some of the numbers out there of what QBs were going for were just insane, and not really anything I'd want UCF to be spending on anyway.
Especially not the situation they're in right now.
No, like it was just, why would you blow that much money? Like, go get an O-line. And I think that's basically what they did. I think that's the decision they made behind the scenes, essentially. But yeah, I don't know. Nothing from Taven Jackson. I was like, wow, this is a guy who's going to come in, and not even like, I don't know. I don't think he'll be a disaster, but it wouldn't blow my mind if we get to that first game and Dylan Risk is named the starter.
Would it blow your mind if it's Jakari Brown?
Yeah. that one would blow my mind. But also, I don't know. I liked Jakari for a little bit there. Until I didn't. So he was fun. If Scott Frost sat Jakari down and said, Jakari, it's February 4th. You've got 7 months to figure out how to throw the ball. I don't know. Is there something there?
Sure. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. This off season of podcasts is it's like mounting on my shoulders right now. How much we don't know and how we're going to have to fill the next 6 months of podcasts with. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm particularly excited for we usually get a good 2-3 podcasts out of the spring game. We'll get what to look at from the offense or questions from the spring game and spring game reaction. And here's Jason Beatty or someone to talk about the spring game. And this year we're just, I don't know.
If we get open practices and if I'm able to make it to, I don't know, because that's not really going to help, is it? Because I would imagine maybe they'll be like on a Saturday. And like if we did like a special, like here's what we saw at the thing, it would be like that doesn't take care of our podcast for the week. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. It's one thing or two more things about the schedule.
Okay.
This reminded me of that because if we do these one-off episodes on the weekends, then this will completely render this a useless statement. But if I counted correctly, the preview podcast for the Baylor game is going to be our 300th episode.
I hate everything about that.
I don't like that at all.
No, I don't care for that. Maybe we just won't. Like, we'll just call every episode 299 until we get to a point where we feel like we're comfortable.
299 part 1, 299 part 2.
Like I've said, it's all a lie anyway, because we've done emergency podcasts and stuff that aren't numbered. Yeah. So, like, we're past 300th, won't be the 300th episode.
But it will be our 300th numbered episode. And I don't know, that 2023 game scarred me for probably, I think, the rest of my life.
I also have to say, and this is so an off the podcast thing that we will discuss, but Bailey and I like to go to a UCF game every year together. And I just don't know if that's going to happen this year with how the schedule is put together. I was toying with whether I wanted to ask you this on the podcast or not, but none of these, like, I don't want to go to any of these games. I was the one that I think I'd even mentioned to you that I was interested in was Provo, and now it's Thanksgiving weekend.
Oh, well, you told me we should just go to Cincinnati again, and I was like, I don't want to.
Yeah, but you shut that down.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to do that again.
And this is a life philosophy that I'm different from on most people. I'll never understand people, and it's most of you, who will go to a place or do a thing and be like, that was so fun. And then I'll go, yeah, we should do it again. They'll go, well, no, I did it. I don't get that. Like, we liked Cincinnati. We had a good time.
But it's a lot of money to go to a road game. And I would rather do something else with that money than go to a stadium, an atmosphere that I've already seen.
No. See, I just, what can you do?
All right. I don't know, man. The last thing about this schedule that I wanted to mention.
I have another thing I want to say about it.
Okay. Last thing from me. They said that North Carolina A&T will be family weekend. We mentioned that West Virginia will be homecoming weekend on October 18th. And then November 8th will be the space game against UCF.
Yes. So perfect transition, because what I wanted to talk about was the space game.
Great.
By the way, for the record, guys, I'm not sure if this has been my best podcast. It's been a very busy day, and we try to.
It's probably been my worst podcast.
A little bit from like when I finish working to when we do it, and I had like a whole work thing, and like I have not, my brain has not been off for like 9 hours, so we're doing what we can.
If it helps you, you've had a better podcast than me. This might have been my worst podcast.
I think you've had an excellent podcast. You've told the fan base the team's going 3-9. It's gonna be great.
This is. Okay, I want to apologize now. I apologize to the listeners. I want to apologize to you because you said, yeah, like you're doing my role. And now I'm like, this is the worst podcast I've ever done. And I was like, I'm playing the Christian role and I feel like it's terrible. But
you're like, now that it's like now that I've been in your shoes, I don't know why people, it's like, I did want to say really quickly about the space.
You're better at being you than me being you.
Let's do a podcast where I pretend to be you and you pretend to be me, and we just see how that goes.
No, I feel like I would get my feelings hurt, and we wouldn't have the same friendship anymore.
Yeah, maybe.
It would be really boring, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's what I sound like."
I don't see. It's funny because in my brain, when I thought, "What would I have to do to pretend to be you?" At no point was it "Let's be boring." It was "Let's just try to." My thought was like, "Let's just try to not have insane and mean reactions to everything I hear in life," and that would be like my version of me.
That makes me feel a little better.
I feel like our podcast is strings of me yelling about something, and then there's a pause, and you go, "Yeah, could be." Basketball this week, and then we. All right. I wanted to talk about Houston being the space game. I'm very excited about Houston being the space game for a couple of reasons. One, I think that's one of the more winnable games based on what we know now. Although I don't think that Willie Fritz is not a bad coach, and I do not believe Houston is going to stay bad. So something to monitor there for sure. I don't think they're going to be I don't think it's going to be another 3-9, 4-8 season from them. But I love that it's a winnable game. This is going to be year 9 of the space game. Try to get another win. Additionally, if it can be Houston, it should be Houston, right? That's not a crazy take.
I don't think so.
I love that the schedule worked out. I don't know what goes into that, but that's like the Big 12 was like, I mean, that's like the weekend for the space game. And they were like, let's throw Houston there. Houston will become the second program to be a 2-time space game participant against UCF. Can you name the other?
Temple.
Very good. Did you see my tweet or did you really know that?
I knew that, but I also saw your tweet.
Nice.
Like I saw your tweet and I was like, yeah, I knew that. My
other thing that I want to say about this, and I'm appealing directly to you, Houston Cougars. I'm sure you're listening.
I thought you were talking to me.
I'm appealing directly to you, Bailey. To the Houston Cougars fans who I'm sure are listening, please relay this to your athletic director. I want to see them participate in some way. And I've gone back and forth on this because there was a time. I think that's a
departure.
It is. It is. There was a time where I don't remember if it was Mahadra comments. Someone made comments about let's turn this into a space rivalry, and I pushed back because I was like, space is UCF's thing. And I don't want to see them, not do that. But my opinion's changed a little bit over time, and it's for a couple reasons. The first is that Houston is the one other school that has a legitimate claim to it. Like no UCF fan can throw a fit if Houston wants to do something space related. They're in Space City. They have ties to the space tournament. I get it. And the other reason is I don't know. It's almost like I love the space game so much, and it's so cool. And I love that it's UCF's best tradition, in my opinion. And it's really, really awesome. And I love everything about it. But in a way, it's almost like I don't want the look of like UCF going all out for space to play the other school that has space ties and they just don't reciprocate anyway. Like it's almost like that's a little bit of a bad look. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not saying they need to go design and drop space uniforms because I understand that's incredibly difficult. And I do not think UCF gets an ounce of the credit they're deserved for being able to pull that off seamlessly every year. But like, I don't know, like something like a decal or I don't know, just get involved in some way.
Yeah, a decal would probably be good. I was laughing just because, and I agree with you that they have a claim to it. It's the Space City, all that stuff. But if anyone's watched the Jeopardy video that UCF dropped for the schedule release, there was like kind of a dig in there. And I won't say it because I don't want to spoil it for you, Christian, but you'll remember this conversation and probably laugh a little bit because
I've already had to tweet the newspaper articles I have of UCF being Space U because there were fights about it again on Twitter.
Oh, already? I didn't even.
Houston fans
surprise me.
Yeah, because of course this is also what I love is like I saw multiple Big 12 accounts tweeting like, "Oh, Houston's screwed," because they're like it's
Oklahoma State people like because that game is in November at the Bounce House and they're like, "Thank God." So
it would have been it doesn't make sense in the timing because it's so late. It would have been hilarious if UCF was. They should have just for the meme been like, "Hey, Oklahoma State" with like eyeball emoji and a rocket emoji.
Yeah, that would have been funny. But
yeah, well, I will say on a final note, and then we can stop. We're talking about if it's a tough schedule, if it's not a tough schedule. We're talking about if they're going to go 3-9 or any other record. The one thing I do just want to say is that I look at this schedule, and yet it feels normal after 3 years. This is still the type of schedule that I wish I could show like 13-year-old me, 8-year-old me, 15-year-old me, because it's just such a they've made it, Yeah. And yeah, it's probably not going to be the most amazing season in program history, but I just love that this is the league they're in. And these are the teams they get to play. And I feel like sometimes because of how bad things have been, I don't sit back enough and just go, it was so far from a guarantee they would ever get here. And it's very cool that they are.
Yeah. And I've gotten the last note I'll say for me is I agree with you on that. And I have felt less of what some of what some other people are feeling. Because I saw some people come out and say like, this is just the same schedule as 2 years ago. And it's very similar. Like it is weird that they're going to Kansas State again before they
open Big 12 play. Yeah.
Same with Cincinnati. Well, that's not true, not at all. But like that 2 years ago, that schedule had at Cincinnati, it had at Texas Tech. But I feel like there are enough differences where like you're at BYU, that's a new road game. At Baylor's a new road game. Kansas is a new home game. So like it's a different enough schedule for me to still look at it and say like there's still some novelty to this because like it is a really cool schedule. And like I don't know, and this is a dumb thing to admit, but like I reposted the schedule on my Instagram story today, and I'm looking at it and thinking like people who don't follow me, like people who don't really don't follow UCF or don't like follow me for UCF stuff are going to see that. And like, it looks more impressive than it would have had I posted like the 2016 schedule, you know,
a little bit.
And like people are like, oh, like, wow, they play Oklahoma State, they play Texas Tech, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're big time.
It's maybe a dumb thing to admit, but
I don't think that's dumb at all. I mean, I really do think that it's crazy how quickly things just start feeling normal, But it is. I think back to all the conversations you and me have had had with my dad, just in life about God. Will they ever get to the Power 4? Will they ever, well, we wouldn't have said Power 4 at the time. We would have said Power 5, but will they ever get there? And they're there, and that's very cool. And now they just have to build to not just be there, but be relevant there. And I had such a Power 4 homer take in my own brain the other day, like not even part of a conversation, because I was thinking about how G5 teams that didn't get called up, like Memphis and Boise State. And I thought in my head about how Boise State, I'm like that, like, because Boise State's presumably a bigger brand than UCF at this point in time. They just went to the playoffs. They've been very good. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, yeah, they just went to the playoff where they lost by a lot. And also UCF's played them twice in 4 years and won both games. So yeah, if they played at this level, they'd be bad. And I hate that I'm the type of person who can have that thought now.
Oh, yeah.
We're the fan base. We became it, guys. We're the fan base of the team that's not even good. And we
it happens so fast.
5 teams and say, well, if you played our schedule, you'd be bad too.
It happened so fast. I remember in 2023, people had takes like that. So yeah, no, it happened fast. And what can you do? All right, football news. A little bit here, just from the Senior Bowl this past weekend. RJ Harvey had 4 carries for 24 yards. He also had a 25-yard touchdown pass. And I know Gus Malzahn was smiling and laughing and probably cackling to himself seeing that work out. He had a 25-yard touchdown pass. Kobe Hudson had 1 catch for 8 yards. BJ Adams, 3 tackles. Mac McWilliams, 2 tackles. I might start, if people are interested in this kind of stuff, or maybe you look at it on your own anyway, but maybe as the draft gets closer, I might kind of see where some of these guys are in mock drafts and kind of include that in the news, because I think a lot of people are interested in this potential draft class UCF might have. So I might do that.
I think that's a great idea, and I think it's the only way I'm going to know. So,
all right, cool. I'll do it then. I'll do it even if no one else wants it. Christian says it's a good idea, so we'll do it for the podcast. The other piece of news, 2025 offensive tackles, Camp Lott and Rayshon McKinney, both committed to UCF. And you and I are both in a space where we don't even really see the commits anymore because we don't get booms, and it's very weird. There could have been more commits, but those were the 2 that you remember you sending me, and I was able to find pretty easily.
I'm not a fan of me just having to find this. I am directly appealing to Scott Frost. Please, dear God, unlock your Twitter account and just tweet, let's go, or something. Yeah. I need something. I really don't know what to do.
I was on a Tampa area podcast on Monday afternoon and was talking about the Bucs, but they asked me, the guy asked me about UCF and how the vibes are, what's going on over with UCF. And I brought up the fact Scott Frost hasn't unlocked his Twitter account, and we don't really hear from him much. So I was I don't know, things are kind of quiet over here, but yeah, it would be nice. Frost warning is right there, and people use it anyway. So
just tweet in a snowflake or something
Yeah. The freezing. I like the freezing. Maybe over a snowflake. I like the freezing face, the blue face with the icicles coming off the. I like that one.
Yeah, I want him to unlock his Twitter account and just tweet a Sandhill Crane and just watch everyone be like, "Please, dear God."
It's gonna transcend coaching staffs.
What if Frost just started tweeting "Boom"?
Maybe start calling him Boom Man.
Can I add a little bit of news because I just saw it. Joe Lunardi, bracketology, UCF is now last team in again. So that BYU loss that was I thought was going to define the season has had no consequences of any kind.
What has happened in the last 2 days?
I don't know.
Because UCF lost that game. They flipped basically. BYU became one of the last teams in. UCF became the first team out. And then I guess
UCF is the last team in.
Got a good night of sleep.
And he was I thought about it some more. And, Mikey Williams is good for TV.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, BYU was the 3rd to last team in, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah, that one
that was
hurt
all
me.
I have. Yep.
Yeah, we want to talk about basketball.
I didn't watch it. Bailey did a much better job than me because I was out, and Bailey did a much better job than me of giving me better understanding of when the team was actually out of the game than I gave him for Kansas.
When you tell me it's over. 8 minutes.
Because I almost, because you texted me and you were like, it's over. And I was like, is it really? And you were like, I forget what it was. You're they're down 7 with a minute to go. And I was like, oh, okay, no, yeah.
I was that's a 6-point game with 58 seconds left. And you're like, oh, it's really over.
I was in a show at the time. And I got the whole swing of I got to go. I think my update from you was it's halftime and they're down by a little. And I'm like, oh,
you're up by 2.
Up by 2. That's what it was. I'm like, oh, okay, they're fine. They'll figure it out. And then I get out to they're about to lose the game. I'm just damn it.
I would say we don't have to get into it, but I'll get into it anyway. It was so frustrating because I missed some of the second half, so I didn't really see how the rest of the game unfolded. But I say UCF felt like they were playing some bully ball in the first half. Like I think they had like 6 or 7 steals to BYU's 0 at one point. They were out physicaling them, but also BYU would just hit every 3. Like they'd go a stretch without hitting anything, and then BYU would just hit like 4 threes in a row. And it led to a 2-point lead at the half. And then, it went downhill.
I think one of the most demoralizing things you can experience in sports is your opponent hitting a big 3.
Mm-hmm. I think I agree.
You. Yeah.
Yeah. What are other things like that? Like after you score a big touchdown,
a key moment.
I was like, after you score a go-ahead touchdown, the other team just going right down, like scoring immediately to take the lead back.
Even that, I don't know, because then it's like it sucks, but you're like, we'll get the ball here. Like I don't know, I there's something about, and I think what I think about threes in particular, and I don't want to get like all romantic about basketball, but it's not even when it goes in. It's like one of the few things in sports that like you're forced to just sit there for a second and know that it's coming. Like guy pulls up, it's a good shooter, he's open, whatever, and you just know it's going in, and you're just sitting there with your heart in your stomach, just waiting. And like I don't know, like even like a pick in a big moment in football, it's usually unexpected, like it just happens, and you're shocked. It's like there's something about a 3 where it really is like just twisting the knife, just forcing you to see it fall.
Well, now that I think when both times you said the pick in a big moment, I thought back to the Louisville game with Dylan Gabriel, and that might have been like the singular moment in a football game, at least a UCF football game, that hurt me the most.
In any UCF football game?
I'm trying to think, because like the Baylor game obviously is like the game that hurt me the most.
But there wasn't a singular moment where I don't know, man. It might have been in Baylor when the RJ fumble that they scoop up and return. There was
an impending feeling of doom then.
Yeah. But it wasn't over. It wasn't over.
Yeah. For Louisville, it was UCF has the ball and they could go down the field here and maybe get a game time or go ahead field goal. Yeah. Instead, it was a pick 6. They lost the game, basically.
Which at that point, when UCF got the ball back, it was like I was certain they were winning. There was no doubt in my mind. And then that happened.
It was bad.
And then just add insult to injury, then Dylan Gabriel breaks his collarbone at the next drive. So
alters the course of UCF history.
Dramatically, more than we ever could have imagined in that moment, which was silly. We probably should have understood in that moment that was going to change things forever. But hey, that's why we love college football. One play can change the trajectory of your entire program and perhaps crush it.
Anyway, game of the week. UCF softball starts on Thursday, their opening weekend. Thursday, they play CSU Bakersfield at 3:30, and then number 12, Georgia at 6. Friday, they play NC State at 4:30. Saturday is Illinois at 5, and then Sunday, they have another doubleheader, JMU at 11 a.m. and Illinois right after that. Pretty packed weekend. I'm excited to watch some UCF softball. Also excited that they'll be in Clearwater next weekend, and I'll get to go see a couple of their games on Friday. Just good time of the year. Baseball's coming shortly after softball, so it's fun. I'm excited. Tweet of the week. Tweet of the week this week goes to the Cincinnati Bearcats of Cincinnati.
They tweeted, as the other Big 12 teams did, they tweeted their football schedule. It was a nice little graphic. In this graphic, if you were to go line by line, you would see that they referred to UCF as Central Florida, which they know not to do. And they intentionally have done in recent years to, get UCF mad at them. I'm interested in this, and I'm sending it tweet of the week because, Bailey, if you had asked me a couple hours ago, I don't know, like, is UCF Cincinnati still a rivalry? I almost would have leaned toward no. It's felt like that has dissolved a bit since they joined the Big 12, which I guess we should have probably seen coming. They were never tied by anything but competitiveness. They were 2 of probably only 3 or 4 teams in the AAC that had real aspirations, and that meant that every year they were each other's roadblock. So it got very heated that way. And I was kind of like, yeah, like I said, you've asked me this morning, I would have said, I mean, yeah, I still don't like Cincinnati, but it's not the same, it's not the same as it was a couple of years ago. Then they called UCF by its name in a tweet. They said Central Florida, and I'm like, they're going to have to win that game by a lot. So shout out to Cincinnati for reminding me really that I just don't care for you, any of you, and I prefer when you're sad.
Did you see the weird thing that Brandon Helwig pointed out with Cincinnati where
the Friday thing?
Yeah, initially, like in their press release, it said the UCF game was on a Friday, and then they changed it, and it's actually Saturday.
Might be a flex. We'll have to see.
That'll be weird.
Yep.
I don't like the idea of playing there on a Friday night, and it's solely because of what happened in 2019.
I was going to say, why? Did something bad happen when UCF played at Cincinnati on a Friday night?
There was devil magic that night. It was bad. Yeah. But no, I don't like Cincinnati. It has kind of lost its, like, feeling since 2022. Probably that was the last time I felt like beating them that year. And I think it was just because UCF had lost a few in a row. Like beating them that year and doing it in the manner they did felt huge. 2023 was nice just because like it was less beating Cincinnati and more like UCF won a game.
Right.
And then this past year, like it hurt, but it was also like, I don't know. It hurt more because less because of Cincinnati and more because it was like UCF just sucks.
Yeah, none of that was, and even Cincinnati wasn't like doing their typical, we're so much like, I don't know. It's kind of felt like these last couple of years, like we've kind of just both agreed. It's like, we got our own problems right now. Like, let's both like figure this out and like, we'll meet back up again when we're
a handshake deal
in a better place. I really do. Of all the fan bases I've interacted with, Cincinnati fans are just the worst people. Just awful people. So always good to see them lose.
Bad creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll be back next week with episode 256. Until then, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCA Simmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.